Have you ever been, in the middle of a conversation, maybe trying really hard to focus on what someone's saying, but your own mind just, well, it refuses to cooperate?
Hmm.
One second you're tracking their words, the next you've mentally zipped off to what you need from the dry cleaner, then boom, a childhood memory surfaces.
Right.
Maybe a song gets stuck on repeat in your head, all while you're like nodding along, trying to look totally engaged.
Happens all
You're in
the
that
time.
chaotic, beautiful, sometimes really messy internal world, that constant, unfiltered chatter inside your own head. That's exactly what we're diving into today.
A fascinating place to explore.
Today, yeah, we're taking a deep dive into a concept that really shook up storytelling and our understanding of the mind. It's known as stream of consciousness, literary technique.
The big one.
And our mission for this deep dive isn't just to define this, because it can feel complex, but to understand where it came from, surprisingly, not just literature, see how it totally transformed narrative, and explore why it's still so powerful. Even if, let's be honest, it can be a bit challenging to read sometimes.
It definitely can.
Think of this as your essential guide,
Yeah.
a shortcut to really getting one of the biggest shifts in modern writing, so you can walk away with solid knowledge quickly but thoroughly.
And to help us navigate this sometimes dizzying landscape of the mind, our main source today is a really insightful essay. It does a great job unpacking the definition, the history, the impact of this technique.
Okay.
So our aim is basically to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from it for you, the listener, so you come away not just knowing what it is, but maybe appreciating why it matters so much.
Okay, so let's unpack this then. We hear the phrase stream of consciousness thrown around, especially with certain books. But what does it really mean at its core, particularly in a literary sense? What are we actually talking about?
Right. Well, at its very core, stream of consciousness is a narrative technique. It really came into its own, became prominent in the early 20th century. It was a huge part of modernist literature.
Okay, modernists.
And its fundamental goal, its purpose, is to try to represent as faithfully as possible that continuous, sometimes baffling, completely unfiltered flow of thoughts, feelings, sensations, memories, everything that just constantly runs through a character's mind.
So like lifting the lid off someone's head and just showing everything that's swirling around in there, raw.
Exactly. The raw, unedited mental experience. It's a really ambitious attempt to capture not just what a character is thinking, but the actual process of their thinking.
How they think, not just the end result.
Precisely. In all its immediacy, its sometimes illogical twists and turns, it's about showing the mind as this living, breathing, constantly moving thing.
That paints a really vivid picture. And it makes me wonder immediately, how is this so different from, the traditional way stories were told before? Because the novels I think of from, say, the 19th century seem much more orderly.
Oh, absolutely. It was a deliberate, even you could say revolutionary break from tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding that difference is key to getting why this technique was such a big deal. Before stream of consciousness really took hold, most traditional stories followed a pretty linear plot. A leads to B, leads to C. Chronological, clear cause and effect.
It makes sense, easy to follow.
Right. And the narrators. They typically use structured sentences, proper grammar, a logical flow of events and ideas. The reader got a story designed to be followed easily, often with an all-knowing narrator sort of guiding you, explaining why characters did things.
Like having a guide holding your hand through the story.
Kind of, yeah. It was a very external view of reality, focused on actions and events.
Okay.
But stream of consciousness. It basically throws a lot of that traditional structure right out the window. It actively tries to mimic the natural, often incredibly chaotic, and always associative way our minds actually work.
Associative, like one thought just triggers another, even if they seem unrelated.
Exactly. And what's really key here is capturing the immediacy of that inner experience. This isn't just about presenting neat, logical thoughts. Oh no, it goes way deeper.
Way deeper out.
It includes those fleeting, subconscious impulses we barely even notice ourselves. Those fragmented memories that pop up out of nowhere, maybe triggered by a smell, a sound.
The bursts, Madeline, that kind of thing.
Precisely that kind of sensory trigger. And those gut reactions, those immediate emotional responses, all of it presented just as it happens in the mind without the author stepping in to clean it up or explain it.
No filter.
None. And here's where it gets really immersive and maybe a bit tricky for you as a reader. Because it's trying so hard to replicate the mind's wild, sometimes illogical flow, it often deliberately messes with conventional grammar.
Messes with grammar. How?
Well, punctuation might go missing. Sentences might run on for pages, twisting and turning. The timeline can jump back and forth without any warning, past, present, future, all jumbled up.
Just like when your mind wanders.
Exactly like that. It might ignore chronological order completely. It's a radical departure, aiming for psychological authenticity over narrative tidiness.
So just imagine for a second, what would it really be like to read a story told entirely from inside someone's head? Completely unfiltered, just raw thought bumping into raw thought. How would that change your experience as a reader?
It's a profound shift.
Yeah, it feels like you're not just watching characters anymore. You're in their consciousness, experiencing the world through them intimately. Sounds incredibly immersive, maybe even a bit dizzying.
It absolutely can be both. Incredibly immersive, yes, and sometimes disorienting. And, to really get the genius behind it, it's important to realize this wasn't just some literary experiment cooked up by writers out of the blue.
Right.
Its origins are actually grounded in a completely different field, which is a really surprising twist.
I find that so fascinating. This term stream of consciousness, it didn't even start in literature, did it? It came from psychology.
That's spot on. Yes, psychology. The term was first introduced by the great American psychologist William James.
William James, okay.
He coined it in his huge, influential work from 1890, The Principles of Psychology. James was really grappling with the nature of human awareness, trying to figure out how to accurately describe the way we think.
All consciousness work.
Exactly. And he argued against the idea that consciousness is like a chain made of separate, distinct thoughts linked together. That was kind of the prevailing view then, thoughts as separate units.
Like beads on a string.
Yeah, something like that. James said, no, that's not right. He argued consciousness is a stream, continuous, always flowing, thoughts merging into one another, like currents in a river, not beads on a string. A truly revolutionary idea for studying the mind back then.
A stream, not a chain. That's a powerful metaphor.
It really is.
Yeah.
To emphasize this, he wrote something quite eloquent that captures it perfectly. He wrote, and I read this directly, consciousness does not appear to itself chopped up in bits. It is nothing joined, it flows. A river or a stream are the metaphors by which it is most naturally described.
Wow. It is nothing joined, it flows.
That's beautiful, actually. It really makes you picture it differently.
It does, doesn't it? It challenges that static view and presents the mind as this dynamic living process.
Okay, so if William James, the psychologist, gives us this incredible new way to think about our own minds, what does that actually mean for literature? How did this psychological insight jump from a science book into novels? It seems like a big leap.
It does, but it's a crucial connection. What James did, essentially, was provide a powerful, almost irresistible theoretical framework for authors.
A justification, maybe?
Exactly. A justification, a vocabulary, a scientific backing for what they were intuitively feeling. See, around the turn of the 20th century, many writers were feeling, well, constrained by traditional realism.
How so?
The world was changing so fast, industrialization, new technologies, looming wars, and they felt that just describing external actions in linear plots wasn't enough anymore. It couldn't capture the internal complexity, the psychological turmoil, the sheer subjectivity of modern life.
They needed something deeper. Precisely. They wanted to explore the inner lives of their characters with way more psychological depth and authenticity than ever before. James's idea that consciousness is a stream gave them the intellectual footing to say, okay, if the mind flows like this, our narratives can too.
It validated their artistic impulse.
It absolutely did. It provided the theoretical basis for breaking away from old forms and diving headfirst into those complex, contradictory, previously uncharted internal worlds. It was this perfect synergy between psychological insight and artistic ambition.
That makes so much sense. Okay, so we've got this idea of the mind as a stream, named by a psychologist. But now the big question, how did writers actually do it? How did they build that bridge onto the page? What are the actual nuts and bolts, the techniques they use to capture something that feels almost uncapturable?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's a huge artistic challenge. But when it's done well, it gives readers this incredibly intimate access to a character's reality.
You feel like you're right there inside their head.
Exactly. Experiencing their thoughts as they happen. Raw, unedited, deeply personal. You're not just watching them. You are them, in a sense, for that moment. No authorial hand-holding.
So what's the main tool they use for that?
The primary technique, the real workhorse, is what we call interior monologue.
Interior monologue. Okay.
This is where the character's private thoughts are laid bare on the page directly. Almost like they're talking to themselves, but, and this is key, usually without quotation marks or tags like he thought or she reflected.
So it just flows into the narration.
Often, yes. There's no author stepping in to say, and now here's the thought.
Yeah.
It's just there. The raw feed from the character's mind. Imagine reading someone's diary, but a diary that captures every fleeting impression, every half-baked idea, every emotional flicker, every memory fragment, exactly as it pops up.
Without any tidying up.
Zero tidying up.
Hmm.
It's the author trying to bypass the usual filters of language and narrative structure to give you a direct line into the character's internal world.
Okay, that's interior monologue. What else makes it feel like a stream?
Well, because our minds rarely stick to one topic in a straight line.
Right.
We jump around, we free associate.
Definitely.
So the narrative flow and stream of consciousness does the same thing. It can shift abruptly, without warning, between past and present. A character might be walking down the street.
Right now.
And suddenly, the smell of, cut grass triggers a vivid memory from childhood decades ago.
Huh.
And then just as quickly, a car horn yanks him back to the present. These shifts can happen mid-paragraph, even mid-sentence.
Wow. Disorienting, maybe?
It can be. It mirrors how our own minds work, that non-linear associative chain of thoughts. It's not just past and present either. They can jump between dream and reality, blurring those lines. What's actually happening versus what's imagined or remembered or even hallucinated. The mind doesn't always neatly label these things.
True.
And it can shift between different sensory inputs.
Yeah.
A character might be pondering something deeply philosophical. Then their focus gets pulled by a bird flying past the window, then a sudden feeling of hunger, then the sound of distant music, each triggering a new thought or feeling.
Like mental pinball.
That's a great way to put it. Mental pinball. The technique tries to replicate that messy, organic ping-pong reality of our inner lives right there on the page. It forces you, the reader, to follow those leaps and connections.
You know, just thinking about how my own mind jumps around, a smell, a song, suddenly I'm back in high school. It makes you wonder how incredibly hard, or maybe how freeing must it be for a writer to actually capture that without the usual safety net of, first this happened, then that happened.
It's a huge undertaking, both for the writer crafting it and, as we'll get into, for the reader navigating it.
Yeah.
And what's really fascinating here is seeing how different writers, the real giants of this, took this core idea and ran with it in completely unique directions. So they each put their own stamp on it.
It wasn't just one way of doing it.
Not at all. It became this incredibly fertile ground for experimentation, showing just how versatile the technique could be.
Okay, let's get into those giants then. Who are the absolute must-know authors if we want to really understand the range and impact of stream of consciousness? The big names.
Absolutely. Well, first, you absolutely have to talk about Virginia Woolf.
Woolf, yes. Mrs. Dalloway, To the Lighthouse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Her novels are just quintessential examples of using this technique to achieve incredible psychological depth, but also with this really distinct, almost lyrical, poetic quality.
Poetic, how so?
She uses it to dive so deeply into her characters' inner worlds, capturing their fleeting impressions, those half-remembered things, subtle shifts in emotion, the way the past constantly bleeds into the present moment. She does it with such elegance and precision.
Okay. Like in Mrs. Dalloway, how does it work there?
Right, Mrs. Dalloway. The whole novel takes place over just one single day in London, but the narrative isn't just following Clarissa Dalloway around externally. No, instead, it shifts seamlessly, fluidly, between Clarissa's thoughts, as she prepares for her party, and the thoughts of Septimus Warren Smith, a shell-shocked war veteran.
Ah, the other storyline.
Yes, and even the thoughts of minor characters they encounter or think about. You might be deep in Clarissa's mind, thinking about aging or London in June, and then suddenly, without much warning, you're plunged into Septimus's fractured, traumatized consciousness.
That sounds intense.
It is. Or you might get a quick flash from someone just observing Clarissa on the street. It creates this amazing mosaic of consciousness. It's not just one mind, it's multiple minds experiencing the same city, the same day, reflecting how complex reality is, how subjective it all is.
So it's like weaving together different streams.
Exactly. And Woolf's style itself is key. Her prose is so lyrical, it has this musical rhythm. The internal monologues feel almost like poems sometimes, focusing on mood, atmosphere, the patterns of thought, often more than on driving a traditional plot forward. The outside world is often just a trigger for the rich inner life.
That sounds like a truly unique reading experience, almost like eavesdropping on several minds at once within that single day. You feel the weight of all those coexisting experiences.
It is unique, and it definitely asks the reader to engage differently. Then, of course, you have James Joyce.
The big one, Ulysses.
The big one indeed. He's arguably the writer who pushed the technique to its absolute furthest limits. Maybe its most ambitious, and for some, its most difficult expression.
Ulysses, just the reputation is intimidating.
It can be, but it's monumental. Published in 1922, it follows Leopold Bloom and Stephen Dedalus through just one day, June 16, 1904, in Dublin.
Bloomsday.
That's the one. And within that single day, Joyce uses this incredible range of narrative styles, but it's his super dense, fragmented, deep-diving inner monologues that really define it.
Dense and fragmented, okay.
The scope is just vast. He captures an entire city through the minds of its people. Dublin itself almost becomes a character built from their thoughts. But the absolute peak, the most famous example, is the final chapter.
Molly Bloom's monologue.
Molly Bloom's monologue, yes. It's legendary. It consists of one single, sprawling sentence, no punctuation, just flowing for, over 20 pages in most editions.
One sentence for 20 pages, without a period.
One sentence. No periods, no commas really to break it up. Just this continuous torrent of Molly's thoughts as she lies in bed. Her memories, her desires, mundane observations, regrets, hopes, all tumbling out together.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. What's the effect of that?
It's total immersion. You are in the raw, unedited landscape of her mind. The spontaneity, the free association, it's all there. The sheer audacity of it is incredible. You get every little nuance, every logical leap, every trivial detail right alongside profound feelings. No guideposts.
That sounds incredibly challenging, but also maybe incredibly rewarding if you can stick with it.
It is. And Joyce's style throughout Ulysses is packed with free association, puns, complex wordplay, even bits of other languages thrown in.
Yeah.
It creates this incredibly rich, layered picture of consciousness. Reading Joyce often feels like decoding a puzzle.
We have to work for it.
You definitely do. But the payoff is this unparalleled intimacy with the characters and their minds.
Okay, Woolf's lyricism, Joyce's dense complexity. Who else is key here? You mentioned William Faulkner. He brought his own flavor to it too, right? Maybe even more disorienting.
Yes, absolutely. William Faulkner used stream of consciousness brilliantly, but with a different focus, particularly in his 1929 masterpiece, The Sound and the Fury.
The Sound and the Fury, okay. What makes his approach different?
Well, the whole structure of the novel is built around it in a very specific way. It's famously divided into 4 sections, each narrated by a different member of the Compson family, this declining aristocratic Southern family.
Multiple perspectives.
Exactly. And presenting these multiple, often conflicting subjective realities is key to how Faulkner uses the technique. It's not just one stream, it's several, crashing against each other.
And which part is the most famous example?
The first section is probably the most famous and the most challenging. It's narrated by Benji Compson. Benji is severely mentally disabled. And for him, time doesn't work linearly at all. Past and present just exist simultaneously. He can't distinguish them.
So how does Faulkner show that?
His section is written with these incredibly disjointed sentences. Abrupt shifts in time and place happen constantly, with no warning. You might be reading about something happening now, and the very next clause jumps decades into the past, then back again.
How do you even follow that?
It's tough. Sometimes Faulkner uses italics to signal a time shift, but not always. A character might be a child, then an adult, then a child again in the same paragraph. Faulkner doesn't explain Benji's mind. He throws you right into it. You experience the world's fragmentation as Benji does.
So you feel his confusion and his unique perception directly.
Exactly. You feel how all moments are now for him. And Faulkner uses this, in the streams of the other characters too, to explore these huge themes. The fragmentation of identity, especially in the post-Civil War South, the inescapable burden of memory.
How the past just won't stay buried.
Precisely. How the past haunts and shapes the present, trapping these characters. His style forces you, the reader, to actively piece the story together, mirroring the characters' own struggles to make sense of their lives. It's powerful, but, yeah, undeniably demanding.
Okay, so Woolf, Joyce, Faulkner, incredible examples. Hearing about them really makes you think, why was this such a massive deal? What was the lasting impact of this technique on literature and maybe even beyond? It sounds like it changed something fundamental.
You're absolutely right. Its significance really can't be overstated. Primarily, it marked this huge shift in what realism meant in literature.
A shift from external to internal.
Exactly. Before, realism often meant accurately showing what characters did, their actions, the external world. Think Dickens or Balzac. Stream of consciousness shifted the focus dramatically inward towards psychological realism. It became about capturing what characters think and feel.
The inner landscape.
Yes, the inner landscape, with all its messiness and complexity. It acknowledged that our true reality often lives inside our heads. It wasn't just about showing actions, it was about inhabiting minds.
And you said it challenged traditional narrative.
Hugely. It
Yeah.
fundamentally challenged the idea that stories have to be orderly and rational. For centuries, storytelling leaned towards clear cause and effect, logical progression, neat endings.
Making sense of the world.
Right. Stream of consciousness deliberately blew that up. It embraced ambiguity, subjectivity, complexity. It basically said, look, the human mind isn't always neat or logical, so why should stories pretend it is?
Life is messy, so art can be messy too.
Precisely. It allowed for confusion, contradiction, non-linearity, things that are very much part of our actual experience, but were often smoothed over in older fiction.
And this ties into the whole modernist movement.
Right. Absolutely. It perfectly reflects the core concerns of modernism. This was a time, early 20th century, of massive upheaval, industrialization, world war, changing social structures. Writers were obsessed with the self, with identity, how it felt fragmented in this new world.
Trying to capture that modern feeling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the impact of time and memory on who we are. How does our past shape us now? How reliable is memory? What's even real when our inner world is so fluid? Stream of consciousness was the perfect tool to explore these big, unsettling questions from the inside out.
It let them show that subjectivity instead of just talking about it.
Precisely. And one more thing, it had this interesting democratizing effect.
Democratizing. How?
By focusing so intensely on the internal, it gave equal weight to everything happening in the mind. A fleeting thought about the weather could sit right alongside a profound existential worry.
So small thoughts mattered just as much as big thoughts.
Yes. It validated the richness of ordinary inner life. Every little flicker contributes to the tapestry of consciousness. It meant the everyday mind of an average person could be the subject of serious, deep literature. It really elevated the internal monologue to a central place in fiction. Fundamentally changed how we see characters and stories.
Okay, it sounds incredibly powerful and influential, but let's be real. Something this revolutionary, this different, it must come with challenges, right? Especially for the reader. Because immersing yourself in Ulysses or The Sound and the Fury isn't exactly like reading a beach novel.
You are absolutely spot on. Yeah, while the power and artistry are undeniable, it's definitely not always easy reading. There are hurdles.
Like what? What's the main difficulty?
I'd say the most immediate one is often just basic readability, because it deliberately throws out traditional structure, the grammar, the punctuation, the linear timeline. It can be genuinely hard to follow.
Like trying to navigate without a map.
Exactly. Or trying to hear one conversation in a really noisy room. Sentences might sprawl, thoughts might jump erratically, connections aren't always clear. It can feel confusing, even frustrating at times.
I can imagine. What else?
Well, that difficulty leads directly to the second challenge. It demands a lot from the reader. Active engagement.
You can't just passively consume it.
No way. Unlike stories where the meaning is pretty clear, stream of consciousness often requires you to actively interpret, to piece things together. Meaning is implied, hidden in fragments, suggested between the lines.
So you have to be a detective, almost.
That's a good way to put it, a detective of the mind. You're sifting through the flow, making connections, inferring significance. It asks you to do real intellectual work, to participate in making the meaning.
Yet, isn't that difficulty, that demand on the reader, isn't that kind of the point? It's not a flaw, it's part of the design.
Precisely. You hit it right there. And that, for many people, is the aha moment. The
Right.
challenge is part of the experience. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
Okay, explain that a bit more. How is the difficulty a feature?
Well, by forcing you, the reader, to actively construct the meaning to make those mental leaps, it essentially mirrors how our own minds work all the time.
Oh, so?
Our own minds are constantly piecing together fragmented experiences, making intuitive jumps, drawing conclusions from incomplete information. That's just how cognition functions.
Right, we're always making sense of chaos.
Exactly. So when you're wrestling with a complex passage of Joyce or Faulkner, you're not just reading about a mind working. You are, in a way, engaging your own mind in a similar process. You're thinking alongside the character.
So the reader becomes a co-creator of the meaning.
Absolutely. You become deeply invested because you're actively involved in building it. And the reward for getting through that initial difficulty, for doing that work, is this incredibly profound immersion, this unique intimacy with another consciousness that few other forms offer. The effort makes the connection stronger.
That makes the challenge sound much more worthwhile, actually.
I think it is. So, yeah, in conclusion, stream of consciousness is really so much more than just a clever literary trick or some dusty modernist trend.
Bit bigger than that.
Much bigger. It's really a profound exploration, philosophical, psychological, of human consciousness itself. It came from this deep curiosity about how our minds work. And it still offers these incredible insights into our inner worlds. It challenges us to look inward.
It really did redefine what a story could be, didn't it? Change the possibilities of narrative form, how authors could show us characters, deepen the whole experience of fiction.
Absolutely. By daring to represent the mind's sheer fluidity, its constant flow, its unpredictable jumps, it unlocked totally new ways to explore character and psychology. And that influence is still around today, even if it's often more subtle now.
You see echoes of it, maybe?
Definitely. And how interior thoughts are shown in films, on TV, even in some video games. That desire to get inside the character's head owes a lot to these pioneers. Ultimately, by capturing that essence of thought's flow, how memories, feelings, sensations all weave together, it offers this incredibly deep insight into characters' inner lives. It's one of modernism's most enduring, most impactful, and honestly, bravest contributions. It showed us the most compelling landscapes are often inside our own minds.
So here's a final thought for you, our listener. The next time you catch your own mind wandering, jumping from topic to topic, from your to-do list to a snatch of a song to some random memory from years ago, all in a few seconds.
Your own personal stream.
Exactly. Consider it your own personal stream of consciousness in action. And maybe ask yourself, how might understanding this literary technique we've talked about help you appreciate the chaos and the beauty of your own mind a bit more?
Or even notice how stories are told around you.
Yeah, or even spot those subtle ways storytellers try to get inside characters' heads in the shows you watch or the books you read today. It's all connected. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of stream of consciousness.